Hey y'all, welcome back to Overcoming Narcissism and Abuse. And I know this title you might think is clickbait, but it's really something to think about. Are you dating a serial killer? And why I thought about this was because recently on Netflix, a Netflix series came out regarding the serial killer Ted Bundy. Now, I didn't watch it because I don't really watch stuff like that, but it came out and there were a lot of articles about it. And one of the things that just kept coming up was the terminology of narcissism, sociopathy, psychopathy, that type of thing. So I said, let me go online and just do a little research. And then I was like, what? Dang, anybody could be dating one of these individuals. So are you dating, a serial killer? Or are we married to a serial killer? Because some of these folks are so cunning, you don't even know what's going on. So let's get right into it. So Ted Bundy, I even watched a recording of his last, and this is the nature of the narcissist. Up until 24 hours before they executed this man, he was still giving interviews, child. Yes, he was. Okay, so this was interesting to me because his behavior and what people said about him, these are some of the things that are similar to what happens with the narcissist. Now, let me start this by saying all narcissists are not sociopaths or psychopaths, but all sociopaths and psychopaths are narcissists. And Ted Bundy was a sociopath, and I think a psychopath in my mind as well too, according to what DSM-5 now says, right? So mostly all serial killers have that narcissistic personality disorder. They are narcissists. So this man, Ted Bundy, some of the words they used for him, they said he was so likable and he was so kind and nobody suspected him. So I was like, how did this man go? But there was some signs. I read some articles where it said that when he was younger, he exhibited some telltale behavior. It was never proven. I think an aunt of his said that she woke up and there was knives around her bed. Also, some neighbors said an animal or a cat or dog was killed and they thought it was him, but they could never pin it on him. So there was some behavior from early on that just wasn't right with Mr. Ted Bundy. Okay, so this man, he did have a girlfriend and he did get married. But I'm going to talk more about the girlfriend because a lot of us who have been in narcissistic relationships, either by marriage or a lot of us may have dated, someone that had narcissistic personality disorder. And, we didn't know who the narcissist was because they put on a mask. And Ted Bundy definitely put on a mask and he exhibited some of those same characteristics and behaviors that we have been educated about, right? So let's talk about this lady that he dated for 5 years. He was in a relationship with. Her name she was a secretary, and her name was Cloffer. What was her first name? Let's see here. I'm reading from an article here, and I'm going to list all the articles. And she ended up writing a book, I think, called The Stranger Beside Me, the true crime story of Ted Bundy. Let's see. So she met her, Mrs. Cloffer, and I don't see where her first name, because that's not her. Is it? Let's see what her first name is. Excuse me, y'all. So let's see. Anyway, I just have Miss Cloffer. I'll come up with her name. She met Ted Bundy at a tavern. She was a few years older than Ted Bundy, and she was the daughter, now listen to this, of a prominent Utah doctor. Okay? Don't forget that. A prominence. Okay? She was a young divorcee with a 3-year-old child, so she was single parent with a 3-year-old daughter, probably vulnerable. Her previous husband had been convicted of a felon, of which she apparently only found out after they had been married. And after the divorce, she divorced him And Cloffer moved to Seattle for her new life, and that's where she met Ted Bundy. Okay, so I don't think she expected to move on from a convicted felon to a serial killer, but that shows you something, right? That means something. She's described as not a pretty woman, but she was described as appearing to be vulnerable and shy. So you see that vulnerability and shyness. They begin dating, and Cloffer fell in love with him, and maybe he fell in love with her money. She often loaned him cash to help out with his schooling. And it says that include, let's see, what else? Almost from the start, she wanted to marry him, but understood when he told her that would have to take some time in the future because he had some things to accomplish first. Yeah, he had to get the money and to do the other things because marriage wasn't on his mind. And this was Bundy. He claimed that he loved her, and I quote, "I loved her so much," Bundy said, according to the newly released tapes. "It was destabilizing." He didn't love her. He even gave her a rose every year on their September 26th anniversary. But Bundy noted that they particularly didn't have a lot in common, and that's they didn't have a lot in common. Let's see. Bundy explained in some of the tapes that he wasn't able to open up completely with Cloffer because they don't have their emotions. They're not able to be emotional. He couldn't open up with her. And I quote, this is what he said in one of his interviews. "I don't know what I was hiding," he told the journalist. "Maybe I was just trying to preserve the Ted Bundy devil may care attractive bachelor image." He said it. Devil may care. These narcissists, they will tell on themselves. Listen to their words. He also admitted that he had envy issues. "I was terribly jealous of her," Ted Bundy said. "I used to agonize about losing her. I used to just torture myself." He was jealous of her, and he was agonizing about losing control over her, but he probably wanted to torture her. So that envious, that jealousy, he probably sought her out and watched her and knew, right. And it says here that even though Cloffer was with him, the woman he dated for 5 years, she had her insecurities, and she often sensed that he saw other women. So you know how the narcissists have multiple supplies, but she had suspicions. It says suspected at times that it was her family's money and position that attracted Ted to her. She'd seen his appraising glance around their home in Utah when she took him to her home in Christmas in 1969. So she immediately knew, see that gut instinct, that it was the family's money and position. When she took him on a trip back to the home in Utah back in 1969 for Christmas, he was probably looking around, scouting out the place like, I got a good one here. So she was the one, when she saw the sketch, that had called the police several times to say she thought that it was actually Ted Bundy. So you see the vulnerabilities, the person watching you. Sometimes they give it away as to how they really feel about you, or the enviousness, being envious. These are some of the symptoms and things that we've learned about, narcissism. So let me give you some other information. As I'm saying, are you dating a serial killer? So let's talk about this. This is some other, this movie came out today, and, let's see. So this is Mrs. Cloffer saying this again. And this is the part about how the narcissists, they want to consume you. They want your life, According to the biography, Crawford describes herself in the book as a shy, insecure, and lonely single mom, divorced and struggling with alcoholism. So she had her own demons, but that vulnerability, right? But she had the money from her dad, who was a Utah doctor, and Ted Bundy knew that. She said, this is Miss Crawford's words, and I'll put the links below to these interviews. I handed Ted Bundy my life and said, here, take care of me. And that's the worst thing you can do to a narcissist, because they're going to take care of you, right? You're going to go through that cycle of abuse. He did in a lot of ways, she said, but I became more and more dependent upon him. When I felt his love, I was on top of the world. When I felt nothing from Ted, I felt that I was nothing. So that love bombing and that trauma bonding, he love bombed her to where she thought she was in love, because she was in love with herself. And then when he pulled back and discarded her, she felt nothing. So basically, she cooperated. This Miss Crawford, she cooperated with this movie. But this is one thing. People looking from the outside in probably thought that things were going good, but there's one thing, this is a sinister thing that occurred. And from what I could read, it come to be found out that he attempted to try to kill her, and she didn't even know it. And what ended up happening was one night, and he admitted to trying to kill her, and I think he told his girlfriend, and she was like, well, did you ever try or ever want to kill me? And he was like, yeah, I'm just summing this up in my own way. Yeah, I did try to kill you. One night I set the thing afire in the house and put the rags up underneath the door, and basically to asphyxiate her, to choke her, or her to die from carbon monoxide. And it was at that moment she realized, she remembered the day. She thought it was just nothing. She remembered waking up out of her sleep, coughing, felt like she was suffocating. Had to open the windows, but she never connected that with him attempting to kill her. And she remembered immediately that particular time. So this man ended up admitting that he tried to kill her. So some of these serial killers, and even in some of these other sites that I watch, like Dr. Carmen Bryant, and Mrs. Sadler, the Destiny Helper, some of these lower level narcissists. Now, Ted Bundy, I don't know if he was a lower level narcissist. I think he was one of the, I don't know, because he was intelligent. But some of the lower level narcissists, they will kill you. They will try to kill you, kill your cats, kill your dogs, anything that you care about. So they will do that to you. Let's see. The other thing that Ted Bundy used to do, he's used to, as far as manipulation, and tricking people, that trickery, right? He would always, some of the times how he would capture some of his victims, he would pretend like he had been hurt. So he had crutches and like a cast, and he would get unsuspecting, women and probably act like he was hurt and then bash them upside their head. And that's the type of stuff he would do. So this man was cunning. I'm telling you, these people, that's why I said, are you dating a serial killer? He studied law. He was studying law and psychology. Those are the worst kind. Like, I watched some of his interviews, and if he put on a suit, you would never know who he was, right? He worked at a suicide prevention hotline. So not only did he learn about emotion, but he could probably learn about the pain and what people would do and respond. So he learned how to respond in different situations. He got sympathy by playing like he was sick and injured, but that's how he gained his victims. And a lot of times that's how a narcissist will do. They'll gain sympathy from us by playing like they're sick and injured, or, saying that they had such a bad childhood, so we can open up to them and tell them all of our business so they could use it back down the road. He had to mirror people on how to act. Let's see, he studied his girlfriend, and a lot of times the narcissist will study you from afar and you don't even know that. And I believe he studied his girlfriend, but he had a girlfriend before her. And let me tell you what happened with this. The girlfriend before her discarded him, right? So before Mrs. Cloffer, he had a girlfriend and she discarded him. You know what he did? He hoovered her in order to discard her. And that's what he did. He hoovered her for a long while and she got sucked back in and he discarded her and he told her, I just did that to discard you. So when people tell you the hoover is not about you, they're doing it to hoover you in. If you got, discarded them, they will hoover you back in. Now this man went to prison and escaped twice. He escaped from prison twice, not once, but twice. This is how smooth this man was. As a serial killer, he escaped twice. Don't you understand me? So I'm just like, what? So he studied law. He studied psychology. He worked at a suicide prevention hotline. He used all of the trickery, deceit, vulnerabilities. He studied these people. He knew, but he had no emotion. He had no empathy. In his last interview he did it with a particular gentleman. It was hundreds of people of journalists who wanted to interview him. And he picked this particular journalist. And I listened to that interview and I said to myself, this man had a crazy mind. He picked that journalist for a reason because he could manipulate it. And when he would ask, with narcissists, you ask them direct questions. They never ask you yes, no, or directly. I mean, when I tell you he did go into, word salad, he went into grandiosity. I mean, I have to get that video and I'm going to try to see if I can find it and post the link to the video. Or I think what I'm going to do is post a video and post each different thing that he was doing, whether it was word salad or manipulation or triangulation or projection. I mean, literally in that 1 hour video, he went through every telltale sign of a narc. Everything that a narc would do, he went through it. And I found myself saying, wow, I've learned a lot, and I'm still going through the journey, but I was able to recognize just from listening to it what this person was doing. So I think one of the uploads I'll upload the video and record it. And as the recording is playing, I'm going to try to list the different tactics or manipulation tactics that the narcissist is using, Ted Bundy, in this particular interview, because he went through everything. He literally went through every bargaining, projection, word salad. It just was amazing. Even 24 hours prior to his death being executed, he was still giving interviews. Once the attention on him, it was not even about the victims. It's all about them. So some of these articles, I'm going to post them below. Read them. But this is food for thought. Because he was just a guy dating this woman for 5 years. And she had some hunches. And her intuition told her something wasn't right. She even called the police on this man twice. So when our intuition, they hoover, they do all of the same things. Okay? But again, a narcissist is not always a sociopath or a psychopath. But a sociopath definitely is a narcissist. And they use that word with Ted Bundy all the way across, because this man, he was able to persuade and manipulate so many people, and that probably led to him being able to escape from prison twice. You would think after the first time they would have him under lock. This man probably was so manipulative that, he just had people fooled. So are you dating a serial killer? That's a good question. So anyway, food for thought for all of us, just in these behaviors, how they cross lines. It could be anyone, but some of the